Welcome to Spring Training, a 9-week-long series from Cannon Church. I'm Tim Emmett, the senior pastor at Cannon, and during Spring Training, we're connecting the game of baseball with the life of Christian faith. This is Episode 7, Inning 7 of Spring Training, which means it's time for a break for the 7th inning stretch. No one really knows when or why the 7th inning stretch first got started. For a long time, people thought it was begun by accident by President Taft. He threw out the first pitch in an opening day game in 1910 and then stuck around for the game. You may know that President Taft was a very large man, and around the middle of the 7th inning, he just could not take sitting in his chair any longer, and so he stood up. Everyone else in the stands thought that the president was about to leave, and so out of respect, they stood up too, and a new tradition was born. Except that it wasn't. Turns out the 7th inning stretch has been going on long time before that. There is written evidence of the 7th inning stretch in 1869, so we don't really know how it started, where it started, why it started. But we do know where the tradition began of singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" during the 7th inning stretch first got started. It was begun, again almost by accident, by Harry Carey, the legendary broadcaster for the Chicago Cubs. 1976, Carey was actually the play-by-play guy at Comiskey Park for the Chicago White Sox. The new owner, Bill Veeck, recognized that during the 7th inning stretch where their organist was playing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," Carey was humming and singing along. Without telling him, he slipped a broadcast microphone into the play-by-play booth so that at the next game, when Carey began to sing, his voice would boom out over the entire stadium. He was shocked when he heard his own voice echoing in the stadium. Everyone, however, began to sing along. After the game, Carey asked the White Sox owner why he did that. And Veeck said he's been looking for years for somebody, just the right person to lead that song. "But I don't have a good voice," said Harry Carey. "That's why I picked you," said Veeck. "If you had a great voice, no one else would sing. They'd just listen. But you have a normal voice, just an average, everyday voice, and so everyone else sings along." Because Carey's voice wasn't great, because he wasn't a professional singer, people sang with him when he was the play-by-play guy for the White Sox. And the Cubs fans started singing with him when he shifted sides of town and began play-by-play calls for the Chicago Cubs. Carey sang that song during the 7th inning for the rest of his career, all the way until his death in 1998. Since his death, the Cubs have had a kind of a parade of people through the broadcast booth. There's always somebody at the park to lead "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" during the 7th inning stretch. Some of them are really good. They've got great voices. Some of them aren't so good. Some of them are really bad. One of the worst ever was Mike Ditka, the retired head coach of the Chicago Bears. Ditka kind of yelled "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." He had no idea where the organist was, where he was in the tune. He just kind of yelled all the words that he could. But here's the funny thing. Even though he couldn't carry a tune to save his life, even though he just kind of yelled the lyrics out, you still knew what it was. Everyone else still sang along. They all knew it was "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," even though it was very poorly sung. Here's the thing. If the gospel is a song, it is a song, very often, poorly sung. But as long as we're singing about Jesus, as long as the gospel we are sharing with the world, we are singing to the world, as long as the gospel is the good news about Jesus, then people know that song. It's still the gospel. As long as the focus of our faith, the focus of the gospel that we live out and share with others is the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, then it is still the gospel, and people can still hear the good news, even if we're not great singers. If we start singing about Cannon Church and what a great church it is, and the good news is that Cannon Church is in your community and you can be a part of Cannon Church, that's not really the gospel. If we start singing about our country, that the good news is, the gospel is the good news that in 1776 the colonies rebelled against England, or the gospel is the good news that America was, is, or should be a Christian country, that we are a city on a hill, the last best hope of the earth. If we stop singing about Jesus and start singing about ourselves, even good things, it's not actually the gospel. That's when we really do start getting into trouble. We lose the tune, and the gospel becomes something unfamiliar to our ears. But however poorly we sing, however inarticulately we bear witness to the gospel, if it's Jesus we're talking about, Jesus of whom we sing, then it's still the gospel, and the message comes across and the good news gets through. following Harry Carey's death in 1998, the first home game for the Cubs after his death, Carey's wife was in the play-by-play booth. She was the one who led the song, and before she did, she said to the crowd, "Sing loud, make sure he can hear you in heaven." This week, you'll have the chance, just with your life, with your words. You can't help it. You're going to bear witness to some gospel. I hope that it is. I pray that it is the gospel of Jesus, the good news about Jesus, not the good news about yourself or your church or your community or even your country, the good news about Jesus. The gospel is the good news about the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. That is the beautiful tune that God has given us. Let's go sing that song. That's inning 7. That's the 7th inning stretch. I hope you have a great week.